Good evening. Welcome to this year's Yom Hashoah program. I want to thank you for taking the time to come to such an important event. We must realize that we are coming together to create a community tonight. Even though we may have different religions or we may be different in our ethnic or racial backgrounds, we must realize that we always need to have mutual respect, empathy, and support for each other. Our diversity is our strength, and each of us can make a difference. Together, we can prevent tragedies like what we will hear tonight from ever happening again in this world. I would like to thank a few people in particular for coming tonight. I was told that Mayor Rittenauer was coming. I hope he's here because I wanted to thank him. I know he takes time out from his busy schedule to come to the program. And I think he is very proud as the mayor of the international city to see this many people come together tonight. I'd like to thank all the clergy who came tonight. Please continue to do the good work that you do, teaching tolerance and promoting love for each other and love of God. I would like to thank Misty Ebinger, a school teacher in New London who teaches at New London High School, who organized a bus and filled it to bring students from the New London High School, especially to, even though it takes an hour to get here, to hear the story and have the experience of hearing a Holocaust survivor firsthand. I'll always remember when I rode out to New London what she said to me, which I loved, which she said, "We may not be very diversified in this part of the country, but that doesn't mean we don't care." I'd like to thank Art Goodman. Yeah. I'd like to thank Art Goodman, World War II veteran, Lorain Veteran of the Year 2014, who constantly inspires me to keep this program going. I'd like to thank Mr. Erwin Froman, a Holocaust survivor who is my friend, my brother, and a father figure who teaches me about life and what is important. I hope this program gives him some hope that overall people are good and we will never forget, so that what he went through was not in vain. I'd like to thank Nina Frankel, our speaker tonight that you will hear later. By spending time with her, I have come to love her, and without her, there would have been no program tonight, so I thank you in advance for having the courage to tell your story. Next, I'd like to thank the United States Armed Forces. In the 1940s, what is described as our greatest generation, these brave men and women rose up to fight evil. It is only through them that we continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have today. They also saved the remaining Jewish people from the Nazis, and without our service members, there would have been no Holocaust survivors. So I greatly thank them, and I'd like to ask all our service members to please stand so the rest of us can thank you at this time. Put the lights up. Thank you. Last, for those of you who have been to this program before, you know I always honor one service member that goes above and beyond what is asked of them, and I hope by talking about them, they will inspire us to realize that we all can do a little extra to make this world a better place. This year, I have picked Dr. Samuel Edward Barnes. Dr. Barnes was born in Oberlin, Ohio, and entered the U.S. Navy at the start of World War II. African Americans until this time, even though they fought in all the wars, including the Revolutionary War, were segregated from the rest of the armed forces and were never allowed to become officers. In June of 1941, President Roosevelt signed an executive order that prohibited racial discrimination by any government agency. Luckily, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt put the pressure on and made sure this law was enacted. And in January of 1944, the Navy began an officer training course for 13 African American officers. Dr. Barnes was one of the 13 selected in the United States, and this group later became known as the Golden 13, a group that is on the level of the Tuskegee Airmen in terms of showing their grit and determination needed to overcome odds many of us will never know. They fought prejudice and hatred by showing class and dignity. The 13 made a pact that they would all succeed, and they did, becoming the first African American officers ever in the history of the United States Navy. Here's a picture of Dr. Barnes in the lower left with the Golden 13. And here's a picture of him with his sister Margaret, who was a member of the only African American WACs stationed overseas during World War II, and is written about in the book, To Serve My Country, to Serve My Race. So she too went against odds many of us have never faced and needs to be acknowledged. But after Dr. Barnes served his country, he went to Oberlin College, where he got his first undergrad degree. And then he went to the University of Pennsylvania, got his master's, and subsequently was then awarded a PhD from the Ohio State University. His accolades are many, but to name a few, he was the first African-American Secretary-Treasurer of the NCAA. He served on the United States Olympic Committee. He was sent by the United States to Iraq to establish athletic programs at major universities. He always emphasized the need for continuing one's education and always spoke with pride of the United States of America in spite of the obstacles he faced. Samuel Edward Barnes may no longer be alive, but he is still inspiring to me today. By studying this man's character, he never felt he was a hero. I found out by talking to his daughter Michelle that he never even told her growing up he was one of the Golden 13. She had to find this out when she saw his picture in a book when she was studying for her master's at the University of Tennessee. He rose above all odds placed in front of him and is an example of how we must try and live our lives and realize that each of us can make a difference. We are all God's children and must always make sure that we see that good always triumphs over evil. May we always keep love in our hearts and strive to love our neighbors as we would love ourselves. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Barnes' great niece, Monica Smith, who currently tells me she is also inspired by her Uncle Sam, and in his honor continued her education and is about to become an occupational therapist. So I ask her to stand and honor her uncle, Dr. Samuel Barnes. So, in honor of our military and freedom they give us here in the United States, I would like to call upon Sergeant Ivan Barrios, Command Sergeant Major Sandra Marrero, Captain Matt Gannon, Captain Sarah Hopkins, our color guard, as they present us the flag of the United States of America, followed by the singing of our national anthem. So please rise, and thank you again for coming.
Good evening, everyone. For the past 4 years, I have been invited to speak to the 8th graders at St. Bernadette's Catholic School in Westlake. The topic is the steps leading up to the Holocaust, and it serves as part of their preparation for the reading of Elie Wiesel's acclaimed book, Night. My presentation begins with a discussion of Jewish life in Europe before the Holocaust. We watch a short video of rare archive footage, some in black and white, some in color, that was compiled from films taken during the early 1930s and shows the diversity of Jewish life in Europe before the Second World War. I give the students some questions to think about as they prepare to watch the film. What do you see? Who are the people in the film? What are they doing? And how are they different from anyone else? The truth is, all the people they see are going about their daily lives like anyone else. There are adults walking to stores and to their jobs. There are children lining up and walking into their schools. There are mothers giving their infants baths, and there are families enjoying a day at the beach. There are teenagers happily mugging for the camera, and there are students learning the alphabet in their Hebrew schools. There is a mixed chorus of adults and children singing Hatikva, what would become the national anthem of the State of Israel. The truth is, these people were no different from you and me. They were fellow human beings who loved life. They enjoyed being with their friends. They cared for and about their families. They had jobs. They went to school. They had hopes. They had dreams. And they were proud of their background and their religion. And the truth is, they were Jews. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Jews were living in every country of Europe. A total of roughly 9 million Jews lived in the countries that would be occupied by Germany during World War II. By the end of the war, anti-Semitism and hatred for those who are different and the greed for power and dominance would lead to the decimation of the Jewish people. 2 out of every 3 of these Jews would be dead, 6 million, and European Jewish life would be changed forever. This evening, we come together to remember those who perished. Even if we do not know their names, we know that 6 million lights were snuffed out, and the world is that much darker because of the loss. This evening, we come together to remember those whose courage and strength of conviction, Jew and non-Jew, helped to save lives. We remember those whose lights lit other lights and so illuminated a darkened world. This evening, we come together to remember that there were many others who were murdered because they were different, because they were targeted based on both racial and political grounds, because they were LGBTQ individuals, because they were physically or mentally disabled, or because they were Roma, Gypsies, or Poles and other Slavic peoples, or because they were Jehovah's Witnesses, or because they were members of political opposition groups. This evening we come together because, so sadly, as time has gone on, we have come to realize that genocide happens in the presence of bystanders, those people who stand by in silence as thousands and thousands, indeed millions, of people are murdered simply because of their identity or belief. Part of preventing genocide, therefore, depends on the upstanders, people who refuse to be silent and indifferent in the presence of atrocities, people who stand up and say no to dehumanization and persecution of any group of human beings, and who understand the value in human diversity. This evening, we come together to bear witness by being present in community to hear the stories, to bear witness by being present in community to feel the pain and the sadness of loss, to bear witness in community by vowing never to stand by in silence in the face of hatred and bigotry, to bear witness in community by taking up the flame of memory and of courage and conviction, and to shine that light, your light, and your light, and your light, and your light, and your light, into the darkened places by speaking up and speaking out to help make this world light-filled for everyone. Thank you.
Good evening. Whoa. Good evening. I can't see anybody out there. My name is Terry Struckley, and I want to thank Dr. Milner for giving me the honor and the privilege of being able to share with you a couple of songs tonight. My wife Jeanette and I came to this memorial program first last year. It was the first time we came to the one at Elyria High School, and it was a powerful and moving experience, and we've pledged to continue to support this effort going forward, and I want to thank Dr. Milner for all he does to keep this alive. I'm going to sing two songs for you today. The first one is a song you probably all know. It's a song called Dona Dona. It was actually written in 1940 for the Yiddish theater. Was translated into English in the mid-1950s and became very popular in the United States. In the early 1960s, it was made popular by Joan Baez, who really used it as part of her social activism. It's sort of a depressing song because it talks about a calf being led to slaughter, but there's also a positive ending to the song. It also talks about a sparrow who flies, and the moral of the story at the end is if you are positive and you have the strength of your conviction, you can break the chains of bondage and fly free like the sparrow. So I would like you to pay particular attention to the last verse as a positive reinforcement. Now I know you all sing very well because I heard you sing the national anthem, and you probably all know the chorus to Dona Dona. The words are very simple. In fact, there's only one word. It's Dona. And the chorus is Dona, 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 Dona. So when we get to that part, I'll expect you all to sing with me. And if you know the rest of the song, please feel free to join in. On a wagon bound for market, there's a calf with a mournful eye. High above him there's a swallow winging swiftly through the sky. How the winds are laughing, laughing at their might. Laugh and laugh the whole day through, and half the summer's night. Please sing. Dona, 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 Dona. Stop complaining, said the farmer, who told you a calf to be. Why don't you have wings to fly with, like the swallow so proud and free? How the winds are laughing, they laugh with all their might. Laugh and laugh the whole day through, and half the summer's night. Please sing. Dona, 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 do. Here's the uplifting verse. Calves are easily bound and slaughtered, never knowing the reason why. But whoever treasures freedom, like the swallow has learned to fly. How the winds are laughing, laugh with all their might. Laugh and laugh the whole day through and half the summer's night. Please sing. Dona, 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 dona. Dona, 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 do. Dona, 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 dona. Dona, 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 do.
Good evening. Okay, I can be heard. That's a good thing. My name is Clementina Pozniak, and tonight I will be speaking to you about my experience as an intern at the Jewish Community Center in Krakow and the Ride for the Living I participated in. Now, I want you to picture it. September of 2016. I was sitting in my freshman dorm on a lazy Sunday afternoon, trying to find a way to make the hours pass. The feelings of emotions of being at Baldwin Wallace University, right up the street in Berea, were still fresh and surreal in my mind. I had always grown up with a strong understanding of my cultural identity. I am a Polish Jew living here in America. At home, I have always been aware of this to the fullest extent. My mother's house is laced with Polish and Jewish works of art, so it was never forgotten. But within the walls of my little dorm, I did not have the comforts of home. I thought of how I could get myself back to my roots, but also find a way to give back to the world. In Judaism, we have a saying known as tikkun olam, or to mend the world. As I sat on my bed, I tried to think of ways I could mend the world while reconnecting with my Polish motherland. Suddenly, I got an idea. My idea was to contact the director of the Krakow Jewish Community Center, or JCC, Mr. Jonathan Ornstein. I had met Mr. Ornstein on my last visit to Poland in 2014. Now, I wanted to be a part of the Jewish community he was building in Krakow. As one thing kind of led to another, I got an interview in December, and then the next thing I knew, I was headed to the airport in May. My first time at the JCC would be spent working on 3 primary events: the Night of the Synagogues, or Seven's Night as we called it, the Ride for the Living, and working on the Jewish Cultural Festival. Additionally, one thing led to another, and I became the personal assistant and translator for Rabbi Avi Bauman. For 7 at Night, the Night of the Synagogues, all of Krakow's historic synagogues were open to the public. Now, this is not just an event to draw tourists in and give them a history lesson, but rather to show the non-Jews of Krakow the splendor and the preservation of the Jewish community. To mark the beginning of 7 at Night, a Havdalah service was conducted on the roof of the Jewish Community Center, allowing all members of the community to watch and take part. The word Havdalah means separation. The service itself marks the end of Shabbat and the start of a new week. Arguably, within this short service, I saw more unity than I saw separation. After all, it isn't an everyday occurrence when a Hasidic, modern Orthodox, and conservative rabbi join together for Havdalah on the roof, in a roof in Krakow. And I fully believe that if there would have been a Reformed female rabbi right then and there, the Messiah would have come. I was able to interact with non-Jews who knew nothing about the history or the traditions of Judaism and teach them a little bit about this religion that has withstood the test of time. During the Jewish Cultural Festival, it was truly a test of wills. Imagine a week full of organizing performance schedules, talking to performers, getting them tickets to events they wanted to go, and dealing with overbearing tourists, some of which didn't speak Polish or English, and I sometimes didn't even really know what to do. But out of every event I worked on, the Ride for the Living was the most meaningful by far. After visiting a place like Auschwitz for the first time, most people wish to never return. We try to leave without looking back, a way of escaping for those who could not. We mourn the families that were wiped out and do not have anybody to remember them. And soon we return to our warm homes, to our families that keep us safe, and we merely reminisce about the visit. Why would anybody want to bike 55 miles from this place of death and evil? At the Krakow Jewish Community Center, it had become a staple event during the summers. Leaving from the epicenter of death to finish at a place where we were creating life. This is why it is called the Ride for the Living. We leave this horrible place with the memory of those who were murdered, and we return to a location where we are rebuilding a community from which they were ripped away from. But I would ask myself, what would they think if they saw us? What would they think if they saw 160 people gathering and smiling in front of gates at which smile was such a rarity? Would they ask us who we were and if we had the right to be joyful at a place where joy was such a foreign concept? Or would they be happy for us as we prepare to embark on a journey to the future? I like to believe that they would be happy to see us leaving this place with their memories in our hearts. As we prepared for a 55-mile bike ride from Auschwitz-Birkenau to Krakow, as someone who is not that athletic and really wasn't in the best shape of her life, I was worried that I would not be able to bike the whole way. There is an option to do a symbolic ride, which many people chose. But as we began to pedal, I realized that my friends surrounded me. We talked and supported each other as we moved away from this place of death towards the city that we called home. With the sun shining down on us, we came together for lunch, and it seemed within those few hours of biking, we had become a family, rather than a group of strangers in matching spandex. We were talking and enjoying the company of the other riders who we had never met and were from nations all across the world. After lunch, the rain hit, and needless to say, when it rains, it pours. At this point, I was further ahead of my group from lunch and had traded out a bike due to technical difficulties. I felt miserable. I was soaked to the bone, the seat was really hard, my legs hurt, and I was mentally drained. So I stopped for a moment to think. As I was thinking, one sentence continued to run through my mind. What would Mr. Froman do? Erwin Froman is an 89-year-old Holocaust survivor from my congregation in Lorain, Ohio. He is like a grandfather to me. He taught me how to read Torah for my bat mitzvah. We celebrated holidays and Shabbat together. I thought about the stories he would tell me when he arrived at Auschwitz and was separated from his father, who was murdered there. But he also told me about his liberation, when American troops said he was free. I knew then that Mr. Froman had not given up all those years ago, and neither could I. I continued to bike, and amazingly, I was one of the first people to cross the finish line. The Holocaust is something that society must never forget. We cannot go back in time and tell the victims that we are sorry for what happened to them, nor can we provide them with food while they are starving or give them blankets when the wind whips through their thread-borne rags, while they stand outside for roll call for hours on end. In the moments that all the riders came through the gates of the JCC, it felt as if all those souls that were lost at Auschwitz were re-entering with us. It felt like the liberation they had never received. When I arrived at the Jewish Community Center in Krakow, I thought about the nearly 3.3 million Jews who were living in Poland before 1940. It sends a heart-wrenching chill up my spine to comprehend that on the 1st of September in 1939, the fate of 3 million of those Jewish lives would be sealed and marked for death within the years to come. Yet, there was a constant glimmer of hope within my thoughts. Jewish life is being reborn in Poland, in Lithuania, in Latvia, the Ukraine. And these are just a few of the countries to name in which it was thought that Jews were no more and that they had been eliminated. This Jewish rebirth is just another example of how good will always triumph over evil and hatred. Now, I would like to introduce my personal hero, close friend, the man who has been like a grandfather to me, who has loved me and is loved and appreciated by so many of us here in Lorain County. Lorain County's last living Holocaust survivor, Mr. Erwin Froman. Thank you all for coming out tonight and listening to us, and God bless.
Hannah Senish was a young Jewish woman who migrated to the Holy Land in 1941 to study agriculture. As World War II progressed, she became deeply concerned for the welfare of the European Jews. She enlisted in the Jewish Brigade of the British Army in a select group of paratroopers. Her mission was to enter Hungary to rescue Jews who were being deported to Auschwitz. The night before her mission, she wrote this poem, Eli, Eli, which means my God, in Hebrew. Hannah was arrested at the Hungarian border, imprisoned and tortured, but she refused to reveal the details of her mission. In 1944, Hannah was killed by a German firing squad at the tender age of 23. She refused a blindfold, choosing to face her murderers in the moment before her death. She is regarded as a national heroine in Israel, where her poetry is widely known. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamel loyam, hachol eveyam, rish rushe hamayim, berak ba'mayim, tiflat Adam, Hashoah ve'ayam, rish rush shehamayim, berak ba'shamayim, tilat Adam. Oh Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crash of the heavens, the prayer בשמיים תפלט האדם.
On this day, but not this day alone, we remember the 6 million Jews and 5 million others who were tortured and slaughtered because of who they were or what they believed. They lie in nameless graves. Their resting places in far-off forests and lonely fields are lost to us, but they shall not be forgotten. We take them into our hearts and give them a place beside the cherished memories of our beloved. They are now ours. We will be lighting these 7 candles in their honor and in their memory. If you've been asked to light a candle, I ask that you gather in this area so that you can come forward as I call you and then light and exit the stage. We light the first candle in memory of children and teenagers who were cut down like young trees before their time. For our children, we invite Tess Kelly to light the first candle. And when I say after each the word Zachor, which means remembrance, your job is to say you are not forgotten. Zachor, you are not forgotten. We light the second candle in memory of mothers who died with children in their arms and of parents ruthlessly separated from their families. We invite Stephanie Gould, whose father survived the Holocaust, to light the second candle. Zachor, you are not forgotten. We light the third candle in memory of scholars, teachers, and clergy who were the first to be captured. We invite Harry Lader, Mark Jaffe, and Cantor Rory Sanders to light our third candle. Zachor, you are not forgotten. We light the fourth candle in memory of members of the resistance who had the courage to fight the Nazis, the martyrs who fought so many. We invite veterans Art Goodman and Norman Demby to light the fourth candle. Zachor, you are not forgotten. We light the fifth candle in memory of those of other faiths, murdered because they were Catholic or Roma, because they were gay or lesbian, because they had physical or mental disabilities, because their ideology or very existence offended the Nazis. We invite Father Frank Kosum to light the fifth candle. Zachor, you are not forgotten. We light the sixth candle as a tribute to those of other faiths who were imprisoned or executed for their efforts to fight injustice and to protect their Jewish brothers and sisters. We invite Imam Paul Hassan to light the sixth candle. Zachor, you are not forgotten. We light the seventh candle in memory of all who perished, as a reminder to us that we must be the light that shines on their lives, that we must illuminate the future so that hatred never again prevails. We invite Sheila Evanchik and Erwin Froman to light the seventh candle. Zachor, you are not forgotten. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may their memories, the memories of these righteous people, be for a blessing. Amen.
I would like to...
Michael, you have the lights? Oh.
You could, thank you. I'd like to introduce Michael Frankel, the son of Nina Frankel, and he is going to introduce his family and introduce his mother.
Family. Honored rabbis, later, Werber, and clergy, honored veterans that are here from World War II and from later years, Dr. Milner, honored guests, and family. I am pleased to introduce my mother, Nina Frankel, a survivor. The term survivor in Jewish vernacular only means one thing: a survivor of the Holocaust. I am her oldest child, Michael Frankel, born in America, Cleveland, Ohio, after my parents, my father Leon, who married my mother after the war, in Krakow, by the way, and came to America. I am a second generation, the term used to describe the survivor's children. My mother's legacy is her children and her family, some of them who are with us tonight. My wife Lydia and my daughter Danielle are here tonight. My daughters Ariel and Morel, Ariel in school in Baltimore in college, and Morel working in New York, could not make it tonight. My sister Anita, who passed away some years ago, unfortunately. Her husband Kenny is here with his wife Jill. And their son Jordan, who lives in Columbus with Alana, his wife, and my mother's first great-grandchild, Zoe, could not make it for night for various reasons, but send their best. My sister Melissa is at a conference that she was engaged to go to and be a lecturer, so she's not here tonight. But her husband Leonard, my brother-in-law, is here, Leonard Kahn, and two of his children, Adam and Erica. Their other child, Lorain, is in school in Philadelphia and could not be here tonight. All of our children are named either first names or their middle names after our family who passed away and were murdered in the Holocaust, to continue their legacy and to know that they haven't been forgotten. We are part of this legacy of my mother's, her children, and her family, which is the most important thing to her. All of us feel very special because we have a special responsibility. We do not know why our mother and father survived, but we feel that we are part of that reason. Because of this, this has bestowed upon us a special responsibility to never forget those who were murdered and those who survived, to tell and retell their story so people never, ever, ever forget. To learn from this incomprehensible event so we never let this happen, never, ever let this happen again to any group of people that are labeled to be somebody or someone's different. One of the most important sacred tenets in Judaism, our faith, which is mentioned frequently by the rabbis tonight, is that we, as Jewish people, have to make the world a better place. By speaking up and remembering, and my mother speaking on occasions to her children's and grandchildren's high schools, to various events like this, makes us remember and touches people that maybe, like you out there, will not forget and maybe change how you approach other people that are different and maybe save a life because of it. Saving a life in Judaism, one life is like saving the world. My mother was born in eastern Poland in a town called Zlochów, near a town called Lvov, or a city called Lvov in eastern Poland, which is now part of the Ukraine. She was an only child, becoming a teenager just when the war started in 1939. She experienced great trauma. She experienced horrors, pain, and personal tragedies, which you will hear about. She survived to come to America with my father, both Holocaust survivors that met after the war in Krakow and got married there. She came to America because America gave her one thing: an opportunity, freedom, liberty, all wrapped up in one. To come here, despite the challenges of not knowing English, despite the challenges of being Jews and immigrants, it gave her the opportunity, and the only thing that she asked for is to be able, with hard work, with focused energy, with honesty in how you treat other people the right way, emphasizing education to her and herself and her children, she could, and my father, become successful and live the American dream. And it didn't matter where you came from, what religion you had, or what race you had. Because of this, we are very proud to be Americans, very patriotic, because of its ideals and what it offers. It offers opportunity, but above all, it offers freedom, and it gives you the ability to have a chance to live and make yourself and the world around you better. That's why at our family events, whether they're bar mitzvahs, their weddings, their circumcisions, their Thanksgiving, their Passover holidays, we all, near the end of our feast together in our celebration, get up together and sing, "God Bless America." My mother is special. She has street smarts, good judgment. She's self-educated because her education was taken away. She is well-read and speaks and understands 6 languages. She is courageous, brave, a go-getter, inventive, maybe not so much going, but she somehow gets there, and very independent.
You have the last
She is
word.
firm with her convictions and principles, yet is kind, loving, sentimental, and sensitive. She is a true American with great patriotic fervor for this country. She is a fervent lover of the only Jewish state and only democracy in the Middle East, Israel. She, despite her age, where her mind is willing but the body isn't, has what she says, has all her marbles. And she feels it is by sheer chance or fate that she is here tonight and others are not. Because of this, she feels she has the responsibility to tell their story, that they were people like us, like you, parents, children, dreamers, people had different jobs and occupations, and were murdered and slaughtered just because their identity was different. To a world at that time that looked to the side, was indifferent, and had no tolerance for this difference. She is here to tell their story, her story, and our story. It is therefore with great pleasure, admiration, respect, and above all love, that we, her family, her legacy, introduce our mother, our grandmother, and great mother to you, a survivor, Nina Frankel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I see that you know my story. Thank you, kids. Hello. How you know? My name is Nina Frankel. I honor today remembrance of 6 million Jews and 1.5 million children who were killed during the Holocaust, and their rescues. Mine rescues the Christian people. That's why I'm sitting here and talking to you. Out of the ashes of the past. Introduction. My name is Nina Frankel, and I want to bring to light my story to the best of my ability because I was a witness to history. This is a story of my life and the fiber of my existence. In the very early stages of my childhood, I had many encounters with death, which forced me to suppress pain, fear, in order to survive. The Holocaust provides a powerful lesson about what can happen when hatred goes unchecked. It's hard to describe the atrocity committed by the Nazis, camps, and the ghettos. They are still vivid to me after more than 70 years. It is engraved and stayed with me all my life. Overnight, I went from a sheltered child to an adult who have learned to fight the inhumane condition forced upon me by the Nazis. I faced death, hardship, and horror on a daily basis. It was a war of genocide. The Nazis were a cold-blooded sadist, brainwashed beast in human form. They were evil, in which they became master of life and death of million upon million of Jewish people. There was no way to plan to survive once in a path of Nazi machine of death. But somehow, some way, with my horrible set of circumstances, I survive. Why me and not my dear family? There is no way of knowing. As the years go by, the survivors die out, and soon we will all be gone. This is why the first-hand knowledge of the Holocaust must be preserved. The survivors' personal stories are among the most effective tools to teach young people about the Holocaust. I survive to tell my tragic trauma of survival, as each in our small way must, to keep the remembrance, as I do the difficult work of sharing. I feel that it is my obligation to be the voice of the innocent generation who were killed by the Nazis. I talk to them what hatred can do, and to end the violence so that this can never happen again. Out of the ashes, I divide my story in little pages. Out of the ashes of the past. Introduction. My name is Nina Frankel. I was born in eastern part of Poland in a small town called Zlochów, as the only child of Anna and Nathan Swerning. We were a middle-class family, and I had a lovely, sheltered childhood until Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. After Hitler signed a non-aggression treaty with Russia and divided Poland in two, we were lucky to be occupied by the Russians until from 1939 to 1941. When the Germans unexpectedly broke the non-aggression pact with Russia, we were under Nazi occupation. In July 1941, during the first day of German occupation, there were bloody pogroms. Pogroms does mean killing. That day, 3,000 people were killed. At first, there was an order to wear the armband with the blue Star of David. Jewish homes were robbed, looted, destroyed, and the synagogue burned. The Nazis set a curfew, and the Judenrat that was established. The Judenrat was an institution of 12 Jewish elders from our town who were responsible for carrying out the Germans' orders. Children could not go to school. The law always forbade Jewish attending marketplace, stores, theaters, parks. Jewish doctors, journalists, teachers, lawyers could not practice their profession. Our money was taken from the bank away. The Nazi broke into the Jewish houses, dragged people out, beat them, killed them, and killed them on the place in the street. People lost their jobs. Business and the situation was very grave. Then they began the action. Action, it means killing. What the German called the killing session. The first action lasted for 2-3 days, and then it was quiet for a week, and you could go again back to work for the German. In early June 1942, a train of empty cattle cars arrived in my town. During this action, the killing, people were dragged into the street from the homes, forced into the cattle cars, and they were never heard from them again. Those who had hit survived. This gives us the idea of hiding in bunkers to survive. My parents arranged a hiding place for my family by giving away some of our furniture, linen, silver, gold, and dollars to a single Christian Polish woman, Stefa, who lived on the outskirts of our town. Her brother was paid to build for us the bunker, the hiding place, and her home. Slave labor. As soon as the German occupation began, concentration and labor camps were organized under the Sturmführer supervisor Warzog. One day, the German grabbed me from the street and forced me to work hammering tombstones from the Jewish cemetery into gravel to fix the roads. After that, I was forced working on the roads. The roads in Poland were narrow, unpaved, and the Jewish slaves expanded and fixed the roads to transport the motorized German army. Then I was transferred to a Camp Zaleshe, working in a quarry. It was hell on earth. People dropped dead from starvation, torture, and heavy work. Day by day, we were brutalized. My work was breaking stones with a sledgehammer, was extremely hard to handle. I developed horrible blisters on my hands, and when the blister burst, the skin was torn and showed the flesh of my open wounds. The pain was excruciating. I began to work very slowly and was beaten on the back with a whip or the rifle butt. I was all black and blue. I could not move from the pain and often passed out from hard work and hunger. When I was transferred to the mixing machine, where I had to drag bags of sand, chemicals, and were so heavy, it brought me to my knees. The more I suffered and felt pains, the more the guards shouted at me and beat me. One day I was beat so hard with a rifle butt that I fell on a cement box and tore my right thumb and forefinger on a rusted nail. I was always afraid to report my injury because I might be killed if I could not work. The Nazi intention was to make profit of us and get rid of us. I did not have adequate clothes, it was cold time, or shoes. The rain and cold fall weather took their toll on me, sending chills through my body, and I shivered tremendously. While I could not function or work properly, I was pushed and beaten again. I hurt my finger and the gangrene started. I was all the time afraid to ask for help. One of the workers exchanged the wounds, wanted to amputate my thumb because he feared the gangrene would spread. I refused. He cut just plain with knife and opened my thumb to the bone to clear the infection. How I endure all the pain of starvation, beating, and infection, I still cannot comprehend. To this day, my thumb is still disfigured and has very little feeling. We all was released from road work because the winter came in and I was transferred back to Zlochów, my hometown, to work for Gendarmerie, the German police, ghetto. In order to isolate the Jews, the Nazis decided to concentrate them into the one place to have easier control over them. On January the 1st, 1942, the Judenrat informed us that the ghetto would be established within one section of the town. The ghetto was overcrowded with people from other towns and villages. The conditions were very unsanitary, and the streets was full of corpses because of typhus, starvation, and sickness. The very cold winter also took a toll. We were all trapped in a web of death. People roamed the street aimlessly with bellies swollen from hunger, and the orphan children cry over the dead parent's body in the street. The ghetto was just another instrument of murder that the Nazi devil used to torment and drive us to destruction. Because of the Christian woman staffer connection, my parents bought Christian documents for me, and I was sent to another town, Lwów, to live with a Polish woman, Mary, who was a dressmaker. My new name, Christian name, at that time was Krystyna Sadowska. After living with her for 4 weeks as an apprentice for dressmaking, I was sent on Lorain. On the street, a Ukrainian policeman recognized me from my hometown. He took me with my documents to German police where I was interrogated. Luckily, this policeman who knew me left, so I pretend that I did not understand German. I only spoke Polish. I continued to pretend I was not Jewish and only spoke Polish because of my good papers and some quick thinking. They believed me and was released. When I was released, shaking like a leaf and afraid that the German police would follow me, I used the money what Mary gave me for the supply to travel all afternoon on different streetcars. That evening, when I returned home to Mary was very much apprehensive, not knowing what had happened to me, agreeing that it was unsafe for me to stay for my sake and for Mary's sake. I returned that night to my hometown's lodge of ghetto, refusing to go by train because I fear being recognized again. Mary's cousin took me in a horse wagon hidden between sacks of potatoes and straw. The ride was long, but I finally arrived to my hometown and sneaked back into the ghetto with my parents. Liquidation of the ghetto. On April the 5th, 1943, our ghetto was liquidated. I was hiding in one bunker with my father, while my mother was in another. The Nazis discovered our bunker and forced us into the marketplace, where before the war, farmers sold the produce. The market was overflowing with the SS-Gestapo and Sondertruppen. Sondertruppen was a unit of soldiers what was learn and teach how to kill people. There was killing going on, and we were confused and afraid. The Nazis were our masters and purposely causing chaos and commotion so we would be even more terrified. We were given order to undress, to put all our money and jewelry into the wooden box. Our neighbors were standing outside the ghetto barbed wires and laughing and pointing at our naked body. We were herded next to a long, deep pit, already full of corpses. I look at my father, unshaved face for the last time, as we were pushed to the front of the pit. I hear a burst of machine gun fire, and as people were shot randomly by the firing squad, they fell into the pit. All through, I was not hit. I fell and pretended I was dead. I did not feel pain, and I understood that I was not hit from the bullet. I was so terrified. The stench from the dead bodies in the ditch was horrifying. I felt blood dripping on me, and I hear people groaning, with more people falling on me, and I was stuck under the heaviness of their bodies. I felt I was passing out because I could not breathe. I don't know how long I was buried in the pit. I kept drifting in and out of consciousness, hearing the shouting above and the shots from the guns. Under the pressure of the bodies, it was impossible to move, and I guess I passed out again. When I woke up, I could not tell if it was day or night above the mass of bodies, and I couldn't see anything. I thought for a minute that the pit had been covered with dirt. The shooting had stopped and was quiet. I tried to raise my back, my leg, and my arms, but I was tangled with somebody else's legs and arms. After a while, I succeeded. I freed my arm, but my body was stuck. Once adrenaline started to rush through my body, I tried to move some more, and after many, many hours, I pulled myself out of the pit at the night. I grabbed the dress from a pile of clothes nearby. I sat down listening for any sign of German footsteps. Then I passed quietly from one building to another until I reached the building where my mother was hiding. I could tell that the bunker, the hiding place, had not been discovered because the trapdoor was still not open. I knocked quietly on the trapdoor and called my mother, saying my name. When they opened the door, I fell into my mother's arm, crying hysterically, telling Daddy was killed and that the ghetto had been liquidated. After one day, we were discovered in this bunker, this hiding place too. The SS signed a troop and brought us into the marketplace once again. I faced the horror I had recently experienced with my father. Almost at the same time, the SS Sturmführer Breitenborn, the butcher of the ghetto, arrived. He gave the order that he needs a group of men and women to clean the ghetto. Since we were still dressed, my mother and I were selected to join the group who had to clean up the clothes of the Jews who were killed and to ship in the crates to Germany. One day, they transferred us from this ghetto camp to another labor camp called Mabel Magazine, which was located in my school gymnasium building where I had attended before the war. The concentration camp. The warehouse where my mother and I worked was not far from our hiding place by Stefa, one of the Polish Christian ladies who tried to help us. It would have been easy for us to escape because this labor camp was not surrounded with barbed wires. Although we could risk escape, but the Nazis used another weapon. They made the Jews watch each other, and if someone went missing on a roll call, the others were responsible would be killed. We thought that as so long the work was there, if we can work for the German, and they need us, but we were wrong. One night, the barracks were surrounded with SS unit, Gestapo, and Sondertruppen. We were loaded on the trunk and taken to concentration camp called Latske. This camp was surrounded by fields and forests and has 100 fenced-in barracks and watchtowers. We were unloaded and ordered again to undress. This time, there just was women. Before, in the marketplace, the men and women and children. Here it was just the woman. Again, we were given the order to put our jewelry and all dressed and into put pail, but we did not have any. We could hear shooting, and I saw an open gate where naked women were being walked into the woods nearby to be killed. The SS Nazi making a great commotion and scare us. In this hell, you hear music of SS Nazi who was playing on his accordion while walking around on the Sambungplatz, that's mean on the courtyard where we were sitting. And this place where we was killing such a murders, they was playing music on accordion. Women were crying, lamenting and praying. Some were sitting frozen. Mommy and I were in shock with torment from the sadistic ordeal. I lived with this moment all of my life. The madness and brutality of SS being the master of our life. We were sitting in a large courtyard, waiting for our turn to be sent into the woods to be killed. Mommy was crying and lamenting and mumbling, forgive me, I fail and speculate the best time to go to hiding to Stephen, the Christian lady. While we was caressing my mother, and we were embracing for the last time, the SS officer pointed with his whip to me and ordered me to move. Vision of torture flashed in front of my eyes, and the fear overcame me. My mommy was screaming. I squeezed her hand, crying to calm her down before she attracted more attention, and then I started to crawl over to this SS-man who was telling me to crawl, too afraid to even to stand up. I saw the SS officer bloody boots and long, light green leather coat stained with blood. He ordered me to stand up. I was so afraid, embarrassed, because I was naked and I did not know what area to cover up first. All at once, he told me he would take me to another camp. The town and the camp was Przemysl. Somehow, I found my strength to speak and ask him to let my mother come with me. He asked where she was, and I pointed, and he motioned with his whip for her to crawl over. Then, with his whip, he handed us two coats, and what the people was killed. And they undressed, and there was a pile of clothes. Then he took the coats and gave it to us. And lead us to the barracks. He said he would return to pick us up after the killing and place the guard outside the door of the barrack. Around us the violence continued, and was a war of madness and genocide. And we were shaken by this outrageous happening. I never saw the SS-man in my life, and to this day I never knew his name, but this was just one piece of my complicated destiny. We did not know what was in store for us, but in the barracks, Mommy says we must find a way to run away. We started to run through the dark barracks, where there was only a little bit of light shining through the gaps between the boards. We came to the end of a barrack, where was connected to another barrack by a closed door, locked door, with little window, glass window. Without hesitation, my mother picked up the coat, covered her hand. My mother pulled her coat over her hand and used it to break the glass. We cleaned up the glass, hiding it under the straw and the bunk beds. We crawled into the attached barracks, where there was ceramic pots on the floor and 3 long shelves of sheepskin being stored. We climbed up to the top shelf to camouflage ourselves under the sheepskin, where my mother accidentally bumped her head on the board of the ceiling, and we saw that straw was falling. The falling straw caused us to look up, and we touched the board of the ceiling, realized that the board was not nailed in. We pushed up a board and climbed into the attic and replaced the board so that no one would know where we had gone. It was another miracle that we found the loose board and were temporarily safe from the killing. I start to sneeze from the hay allergy, from the straw, and instinctively I reach into the coat pocket, maybe for a hanky, for something, to cover my nose, to make not noise. I felt a key in the pocket, but thought nothing of it, and I did not realize that this key would be our tool to escape. We were temporarily separated from the killing outside, and my mother's voice still rings in my ears as she said, "Finding the loose board is another miracle, like a splitting of the Red Sea." That evening, a mass killing stopped and it was quiet. We could hear the German running downstairs through the barracks below looking for us. But they did not find us. We stayed in that attic for 3 days, but we had another dilemma because we did not know how to get out of this barracks. Since we were hiding on the end of the barracks that was facing the fields, we could see peasants cutting their feet through the gaps in the board because it was harvest time. My mother searched the attic walls for another loose board, but we were not so lucky this time. It was then that I remembered the key in the pocket of the coat, what the SS gave it to me. We used the key to scrape around the nail, the loose boards, and the wall facing the field so that we can escaping. With the cover of darkness of the third night, we jumped from the attic and ran through the fields, hoping to return to our town where we had arranged a hiding place with Stephen, the Christian woman. We did not know which direction to go to our town, so we decided to go to the right. We did not stop in any villages because there weren't any, and because the local people were our enemy too. We were so helpless and weak, but with all our might, we fought to live. We walked through the night, and during the day we hid in the woods. The night were pitch black, and I felt like I was walking into the wall. One night, while walking alone in the ravine, we hear voices and horse and wagon approaching the road. We run into the field and lay there flat until the wagon would pass by. Probably because of exhaustion and weakness, I dozed off. I do not know for how long. I woke up and quietly saying to Mommy, it was time to go. She did not answer because we were in a terrible shape. I thought she must have fainted, and I tried to feel around for my mother, but I could not find her. I started to run through the fields calling for her. I thought that perhaps she spoke to me while I was sleeping, and that she must have, and I did not answer, and that she must have gone off to look for me when I did not respond. I called her name, but there was not answer. Then the terror of my alone took over, and panic and animal instinct made me run and look for her. It was unbelievable agony to lose her, the last link of my family chain. I was tormented, not knowing what happened to her, and the thoughts of what might happen were agonizing, and went on forever. I was so helpless. It's hard to imagine how I felt, confused and full of deep emotion. The wounds still ooze and continue today. Darkness surrounded me, and I could not see. And I think, but I wrote anyway. That night I came to a only small building with a dim light and a sign. Excuse me, I get so emotional. Dim light and a sign says Bakery of Golden Wheat. I went into the courtyard and I hid in a shack behind a pile of firewood. I had never heard of this bakery in my town, so I was sure I was not home yet, and I became more panic-stricken because I did not know where I was. If this was not my town, I had not one to hide me. By early morning, a woman came for wood and discovered me. Just by looking at my appearance, and because I was hiding, the woman knew I was Jewish. And she told me that I could not stay there, crying helplessly. I began to beg her not to give me away. I asked where I was. By luck, I was in our town on the outskirts of Zlochów. She walked away from me with my life in her hands, and I wasn't sure what she would do. But the woman had a conscience, and she brought me a biscuit and a cup of water. She told me I should leave that night, and I was so moved that I kissed her hands. Excuse me. In hiding, since I was in the outskirts of my town, I left that night and luckily found myself by Stefa's house. Stefa was the Christian lady. I stayed there in a hiding for 5 or 6 weeks. Meanwhile, in 1943, the Germans began retreating, but at a very slow pace. One day, Stefa said that I should leave because the Germans were killing the Christians who were hiding the Jews, and she was afraid. Stefa had all our family possession, the money, and I was faced with another dilemma. But I remember that my mother has arranged another hiding place for her younger sister Tonka in a village called Ushnia, with a couple named Jan and Genia Rogowski. So, one night, Stefa's brother took me on his bike to the village, and I hid there with my aunt in a bunker for 11 months. Our hiding place was like a grave. I could only sit or lay down in this hole in a barn under the pig and cow stall. Every night, Jan emptied our lavatory pot and give us some food to our water. It was intolerable to live in a hole for 11 months in almost total darkness. Liberation. The Germans were retreating for eastern part of Poland, and the Russian army liberated us in July 1944. I was mentally and physically ill and ended up in the field hospital. In May 1945, the war ended when the Germans were finally defeated. I returned to my hometown, always hoping and waiting for my mother to show up. Others who survived returned to town and searched for their families. The thoughts of what might happen to my mother torture me endlessly even now. One day, I ran into a Christian man in Zlochów by the name Zygmunt, a Christian man. He had helped us to get some food at the beginning of the German occupation. He was so happy to see me and that I survived, and he told me that he saw my mother passing through the town with Ukrainian SS police and a horse wagon, and that they killed her someplace. This explanation solved the mystery of her disappearance. On that night when she disappeared, we heard voices passing by with a horse and wagon. When we ran to the adjusted field to hide, I dozed off from exhaustion. My mother must have approached the wagon, thinking it must be a peasant who can help us. Instead, it was Ukrainian SS police. We was always, I get so emotional, excuse me. We were always afraid of the local enemies. We had survived many obstacles and tragedies together, and we survived with many miracles. What made her take such a big chance puzzles me even today. I'm so sorry. My mother had known if my mother would not have approached the wagon, she would have survived with me. Being an orphan so early in my life and being alone to face the world that surrounded me put me in depression. I felt deep pain why she left me, and I could not understand. I was devastated. My inner wounds never left me and never healed. There were many times during the war that I faced that slave labor ghetto, the concentration with hiding in the grave for 11 months. But with luck and my destiny, I was the lone survivor of my family. My father was killed in Zlochov ghetto, and my mother somewhere in Zlochov, and unfortunately, I do not know where are the graves. This experience inflicted deep wounds in me that I have had to live with all of my life, but some chance I survived my Nazi machine of death. All through, I was liberated from barbaric Nazi oppressor. I was not free at all, and I am still tormented with my tragic past and scarred I have. The fiber of my life are braided with terrible experience and thousands of times I outlived tragic situation. I have all the time the flashbacks. For a long time, I bottled up my tragic memories, and my depression was still going up all the time. But when I give birth to my children, I plant new seeds, and I build a new generation. I often dwell to try to understand my journey and why events happen to one person and not to another. One person is blessed with life and miracles to survive the Holocaust, another one isn't. Does it mean the other person is less deserving? We do not know the philosophical answer. The Holocaust was a destruction of humanity and the force of evil. It is very hard for me to describe the fear of death. It's like how you feel and how you live through it. In 1945, after the war was over, I met a Polish Jewish survivor whom I married in Krakow. We decided to leave Poland and go to America occupation zone in Germany and wait for 5 years to receive the papers 5 years, to come to America in 1949. We arrived in the United States. My dream of living in America became a reality when I saw the Statue of Liberty and stepped into the free land in the late fall of 1994. We appreciate the freedom of this country. With all these opportunities, we did not know the language, and it was not easy, but we learned and managed to build for ourselves a new life upon ashes of the tragic past. With ambition, dignity, and greatness, you elevate yourself. We did it all on our own, not depending on others or on the government. God provides opportunities. You should take them and develop them with hard work, which we did. We have 3 lovely children who pursue medical profession, and 7 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. We managed to achieve the American dream. Thank you, America, and God bless America. We survivors passing away, we try to capture our testimony and document them while we are still alive, so that our stories of Holocaust will live in memory for all time. Survivors came back after liberation to their own town, hoping maybe someone survived from their family. No one from their family could be found. Our town and all Poland had become a graveyard for all the Jews. All survivors like me left the town with just the memories that we took, and later we tried to capture the memory of our town, our families, and our challenges in Holocaust on paper, bearing the witness for future generations to remember we are witness of history. I have described the painful truth of my survival. We survivors endure even though it was a cold and cruel world. Sometimes by luck and destiny, you found heroes, not necessarily just the kind you find them on the battlefield, just plain good human being filled with the goodness of a man who with compassion opened their heart to us in brutal world. They were our heroes, our rescuers, a light of our darkness. We were forgotten. We never forgot them. And we never forgot that they touched our soul and nourished us back to life. To me, these heroes were righteous Christina Stefa and Genia Ragowski, the Christian, the righteous Christians. They showed me that human being can be good and show that there can be a better world and a way to live. After the war, I was in contact with them. In 1997, I went to Poland to visit Genia and Jan Rogowski. Stefan was dead already. I never forgot them and did reward them. By now, they have passed away, but I am still in contact with their daughter. They were good and saved my life. Remember, evil succeeds when good people do nothing. I see in front rows, there was a younger generation. You are the younger generation. You are the future of this country. Maybe some of you will become teachers of history of Holocaust. Teach against ignorance, prejudice, and the other forces of hate, such as extremism, evil, and bullying in school. Teach tolerance. Where you spread the teaching, you will secure a safer and better world and prevent the seeds of hatred. No matter what color or religion you are, we all have a place on this earth. The future of mankind and peace is in your hands. We cannot change the past, but we can better the future. I keep Holocaust memory alive to ascribe, I cannot see it, good. I keep Holocaust memory alive to inspire citizens and leaders to confront hatred, prevent genocide, and promote human dignity, and constantly changing the world. The Holocaust provides a powerful lesson about what can happen when hatred goes unchecked. The words cannot describe the atrocity committed by the Nazis. The memories are still vivid to me after more 70 years. They have stayed with me all my life. Miracles of miracles. Who would predict a young girl in ghetto and concentration camp would survive the Holocaust? It was unthinkable to live to see my children and grandchildren and one grandchild be born and free in USA. And I will tell my tragic testimony of my survival during the Holocaust by the Nazis in this beautiful auditorium. I tried to deepen the knowledge of Holocaust. Remember, freedom is not free. Nothing happens unless you make it happen. Holocaust did not begin with the killing. Rather began with the words, propaganda of expert. When I was alive there in Europe, that time was radio. Now it's TV. That's what started the Holocaust. The human being must bring the inspiration to make the world better, less hate, more tolerance. Remember, goodness is the biggest force in this world. Thank you for listening to me and my crying, because I all the time get very emotional. Thank you. Thank you. It's really unthinkable that I'm sitting here. Who would know that I would survive? But thank you, America. I love this country. I would give life for that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
El Mole Raheme means God full of compassion. And it is a Jewish prayer for the soul of those who have died. We recite it at funerals and at memorial services. And we pray that the deceased be granted perfect peace in the care of the divine presence. There are various versions of this prayer. There's the El Mole Rachamim for individuals, for the fallen soldiers of the Israel Defense Force, for the martyrs of our history, and in memory of the victims of the Holocaust. Becky Shore will chant El Mole Rachamim, and everyone is invited to say your own prayers in memory of your loved ones, as well as the victims of the Holocaust. Please rise.
harachamim, shochen bamromim. Hamtzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashechina. B'ma'alot kedoshim tehorim, kezohar harakia mazhirim. L'nishmot kol achenu b'nei Yisrael, shenitbechu v'Hashoah, anashim, nashim, v'taf, shenachneku, v'shenisrefu, v'shenehargu, shemasret nafsham al kiddush Hashem, Began Eden tehi menuchatam. Ana bal harachamim, hastirem beseter kenafecha leolamim. Utzror bitzror hachayim et nishmotehem. Adonai hu nachalatam, v'yanuchu v'shalom al mishkevotehem, v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence, among the holy and the pure, whose radiance is like the heavens, to the souls of all the men, women, and children of the house of Israel, who were slaughtered, strangled, and burned in the Shoah. May they rest in paradise. Master of mercy, may they find eternal shelter beneath your sheltering wings, and may their souls be bound up in the bound of life. Adonai is their portion, may they rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing. The mourner's Kaddish is recited at Jewish funerals, on the anniversary of the deaths of our loved ones, and at memorial services. Unlike Amolei Rachamim, it is not in Hebrew. It's actually in Aramaic, which is the language that was spoken in the Holy Land thousands of years ago during the time of the Second Temple. In fact, Aramaic was the language that was spoken by Jesus. It does not mention death. The central theme for the mourner's Kaddish is the magnification and the sanctification of the name of God. In this prayer, even though we feel sadness and loss, we proclaim our faith in God. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, v'yolama divra kirute, v'yamlich malchute, v'chaye chon uv'yomei chon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'izman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mavarach le'olam olmei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpoar, v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yatadar, v'yatalna, v'yatalnal, Shemei dekudasha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nachamata, damiron v'yolama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim alenu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, huya aseh shalom. Alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
You may be seated for closing thoughts. As we end the evening, a special thank you to Arnie Milner, who was the chair of the committee, who made this evening possible. Thanks, Arnie. and to the committee, and a special thanks to Nina Frankel. I've heard of you speaking, but I've never had the honor of hearing you speak, and we thank you. It's difficult for us to underestimate what survivors like Nina go through to come forward and to speak time after time and after time, and the pain that that causes them. So we thank you for doing that for our sakes and to keep memories alive.
I want to say, my voice, I speak, it's very hard for me to speak, but I speak because it's my voice, that's the voice of the people who was killed. 6 million Jews and 1.5 million children. And what we went through a lot, then I must speak. It's very hard for me to do, but I must speak because for them.
Thank you. And those millions of voices, I think, shined through your voice tonight. Many of us have read the words of survivor Elie Wiesel from his book, Night. Never shall I forget those moments that murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to ashes. Never shall I forget those things, even if I were condemned to live as long as God himself. Never. Mr. Wiesel continues to explain why he is compelled to share his story, saying, "To forget would be not only dangerous, but offensive. To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time." Tonight, on this Yom Hashoah v'Hagvura, this day of remembrance of the Holocaust and heroism, we have not forgotten. We have taken our duty to remember seriously as we have honored the dead and shared a piece of their story, as we have fulfilled the sacred task of listening, of speaking, of grieving. When we leave this holy space and somber time, let us continue to remember. Let us not forget that every act of love towards someone who worships a different God or the same God with a different name or no God at all, every act of love is an act of remembrance. Let us not forget that every act of kindness towards someone who speaks a different language, eats different foods, carries a different passport, celebrates different holidays, or enjoys different customs, every act of kindness is an act of remembrance. Let us not forget that every act of inclusion towards someone who has a different skin color, or sexual orientation, or gender identity, or who has a physical, cognitive, or emotional challenge, every act of inclusion is an act of remembrance. Let us not forget that every act that uplifts the fallen, brings dignity to the downtrodden, encourages the disheartened, or strengthens the weak, every act of goodness is an act of remembrance. To forget would not only be dangerous, but offensive. To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time. We have not forgotten. May the many millions of victims be kept alive through the light of memory, as our choices today and every day serve as acts of remembrance. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. Then the memory of every one of those righteous people shall be a blessing to us. We have not forgotten. Let us remember.
I just want to say one thing quickly. I did forget someone in our family that had passed away. one of my mother's granddaughters, Lisa Ann Moss. So just that we didn't forget and make that mistake. I just had to mention her name. Thanks for your indulgence.